First thing I want you to remember is that Einstein definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. You're here for a reason. You're here because you want to do something about stress. You want to be able to manage your stress. You want to try to figure out how to mitigate that so you can perform better. We'll talk about a little bit more about performance here. But as we start reducing that stress, we'll start being able to change our performance as well. We saw that graph at the very beginning, the Yerkes-Dodson law, the modification to that. So as we start bringing that stress down to that more manageable level, that's going to encourage our performance and help our performance out, simply because, like I said, it gets our blood flowing, it gets us focused, it gets our attention really focused and honed in, things like that. So in order to respond differently to stress, or to reduce that stress, we've got to respond differently to it. And one of the things that we want to think about here is this law of the process, and I'm sure that you've seen this before. And I come back to LeBron James with this, or somebody learning a sport, because it's the easiest way to explain the law of the process. Basically, you don't know what you don't know. So when you're first introduced to something, you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know it, you're not very good at it. You've never tried it before. Then you're introduced to it, somebody shows it to you, dribbling a basketball. Okay, so we start dribbling. I'm not very good at it. I really have to focus in on it. I have to really consciously think. And for me, it's, I'm not very good at dribbling at all. I've never gotten past the level of consciously incompetent. I'm not good at basketball. That's why I never play basketball. But you start thinking about it, and you're going to watch your hands, and you're going to sit here and focus on it, right? So, you're starting to get better at it, and through repetition, then all of a sudden you can start taking your eyes off the ball and start looking around, and you're still able to dribble that basketball. Right? But then you can start paying attention to what's going on. And you start thinking about, okay, here are your teammates. What are we doing? What kind of plays are we having? Start moving down the court while you're dribbling and moving it. When you first learn to dribble, it's just staying put. Then you start learning how to move and dribble, and you start being aware of your surroundings and things like that. So eventually you become unconsciously competent, where you can perform it. Consciously competent, where you're good at it. You still have to think about it a little bit, but the effort starts going down, and you can start thinking about some other things. Eventually you get to the point where it's all just automatic. So think about LeBron James, NBA players, basketball players. How many times have they dribbled a basketball in their life? They've gone through this cycle. LeBron James probably dribbled a basketball billions of times in his life, literally. Because every day, what does he do? He still practices. He still dribbles it because he didn't want that skill to go away. So it takes a long time to develop, but once you get there, it doesn't take a whole lot to maintain it. So what you've got to do is focus on, number one, practicing these enough to be able to get to that level, at least of conscious competence, where you're good at it. You might have to think about it a little bit, and you can start changing your focus to some other areas at the same time. Ultimately, that goal is through repetition, getting to unconscious competence. Now, what I'm talking about tonight, to be honest with you, I've written a book on it. I've been practicing this stuff for 12 years now. So for me, most of what I'm talking about right now, I'm at that level of unconscious competence because I just don't think about it. It just happens. It becomes part of me. So my response to stress, with one exception, if my wife's online here, she'll be the first one to admit it. She knows how to push my buttons still. So she still knows how to get a reaction out of me. But when she does, they're short-lived. Back years ago, we used to get angry with each other, and that anger would last for a long period of time. Now it's very fleeting. We get angry, let the emotion experience that emotion, figure out what it's telling us, why it's telling us, what it's telling us, things like that, and then we move on with our lives. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But I want to go through 3 different things tonight. Number 1 is just getting out of your mind. You got to watch your head. And we'll talk about, this is related to everything else we're talking about. But word choice and mental state is critical, and it's very easy to manipulate and to change the words that you use. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a couple different concepts of physiology, and then we'll talk about the concept of conditioning. You'll see you're already conditioned, and there's one real easy way to change your emotional state and start reducing stress. So what you say really becomes your reality. It starts with word choice. What you say is it tells your body where you focus your attention. Eventually, your attention starts creating your perception and how you perceive the reality, and eventually your perception becomes reality. And I'll give you an example. Somebody's deathly afraid of flying. I love to fly. When I'm on an airplane, nobody bothers me. I can unplug. If I'm on a cheap airline, I put some stuff on my phone. I play games. I watch movies. When I'm traveling, I love long 12, 14, 15-hour flights. I eat, I nap. I don't really sleep very well unless I'm able to lie flat, but I eat, I nap, I watch movies, I get up, I walk around. When I'm traveling with my wife, we chit chat, we have a fun time. I love it. Turbulence comes, it starts bouncing up and down really, really heavy. It doesn't bother me. Put me next to somebody who, and you can probably tell by the tone of my voice, I love to travel. I can sit here and talk for hours. If you've had me in class before, I'll tell you about trips that I've taken. And we've talked about that, and especially in my global business class. I've been lucky enough to have traveled to 63 different countries around the world. And some of them, a couple of the trips have taken over, literally door to door has been 48 hours. And it's awesome. A lot of that's in the air. I've been on trips where from door to door, it's taken me over 20 hours, 22 hours of flying time. And it's incredible. You can tell by the tone of my voice, I love it. Now, imagine somebody else talking about flying. My word choice, I talk about flying, I love it. And I use words that describe it that way. My attention is having fun, having a great time. Look at it, watching movies, eating, relaxing. My perception becomes my reality. My reality is that, hey, I'm just having a great time in an airplane up in the air. Now, the physical situation is the same between me and somebody who hates to fly. Somebody who hates to fly is going to talk about things like, what happens if one of the engine stops working? Or what happens if a bird hits the airplane? Or what happens if lightning strikes? Or what happens if this? And they start talking about their fear. People that are afraid of flying will talk about it. And that's where their attention is focused. When they hit some turbulence, death grip on the armrests, right? Their perception is one of fear. And it's created through what they talk about and how they focus their attention, where they direct that attention. And that becomes their reality. It's a very unpleasant experience. Now, the physical situation is the exact same. We're both sitting in these aluminum seats in an aluminum tube flying 30, 35, 40,000 feet in the air, 550 miles an hour, just jetting across the sky, right? And it's got two wings attached to it with a couple of engines to move us. That's the same physical situation. But our realities are very different. The person who's afraid of flying, not having a good experience. Me, hey, I'm just chilling out, having a great time, relaxing. So it all boils down to word choice and how you describe your events. Words are very powerful. A lot of people have said before, and I'm paraphrasing, but your mind and body listen to what you say. And that's true. Whatever you start saying, you start believing it. If you start talking enough, you start believing it. So when we start thinking about time, how many of you put down time as one of your major stressors? One of the big problems when I talk about this in my classes, because students always think they don't have enough time on their hands. And what happens when you start telling yourself you don't have enough time? Your stress goes up. It actually probably gets past that trigger point where your performance starts going down. So when you start talking about time, saying I don't have enough time, you're probably already over here where your performance is going down because you can't think clearly, rationally, logically, critically, creatively, any of that stuff, because your stress level is so high, it's interfering with your ability to think. It takes longer to accomplish basic tasks when that happens because you're not thinking, you're not processing. So change the way you view about time, start thinking about time as a resource. More importantly, just watch your mind, watch your words. Stop telling yourself and stop thinking I don't have enough time. We got 24 hours in the day. Yes, we cannot create more hours in a day, but you can create time. If you start thinking about time and viewing time differently, you start becoming more efficient. You drop your stress levels down. You can become more efficient with the same amount of time that you have. So in other words, instead of taking 90 minutes to do a task, to complete an assignment over 90 minutes to 2 hours, you bring that stress level down, you start getting excited about it, you start enjoying the process instead of getting stressed and anxious over it where you can't think straight. You get excited about it, and now all of a sudden 90 minutes to 2 hours taking you 30 to 60 minutes to do. You've just created anywhere from 30 to 60, 90 minutes by simply operating more efficiently. And that's based on how you're viewing time. And it comes back to this concept of word choice, attention, perception, and reality. You start talking about time differently, you start thinking about time differently. The way you view time, your perception of time will start to change. You'll start reducing that stress to get you onto the backside of that curve. So then once you start reducing the stress, you become operating more efficient, and now all of a sudden you've got more time on your hands. So time is one of those things when it stresses you out, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy just because you're less productive when you're stressed out. Power of words is really critical here. If I ask you, how are you? Think about your response. Most people will say, oh, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm good. I would challenge you not to settle for that. I would challenge you to start being outstanding, fantastic, fabulous. Dr. Dr. Baglione, I still remember when I first started at St. Leo, he'd ask me when we passed each other in the hall, he'd say, how are you? And I was, I'm fantastic, thanks. And after a couple of months, he said, when are you not fantastic? And I said, never, because I choose to be fantastic. If you're not fantastic, but you respond that way, what's going to happen? If everybody says, everybody asks you how you are, and you say, hey, I'm fantastic, thank you. How are you doing today? And you say it with emotion and intensity and a smile, even first thing Monday morning. Start thinking about it on a Monday morning. People dread to go to work on Mondays. I love coming to work on Mondays. I am fabulous. When I wake up, I'm having a great day right off the bat because I was able to get out of bed. Right? I'm not 6 feet down, I'm 6 feet up. Well, not 6 feet, maybe a little over 5 feet, but I'm vertically challenged. Yes, it doesn't bother me.